Hey everyone, welcome to this video, and in this video I am going to show you VirtualBox, and we are going to create a virtual machine and understand the various aspects of VirtualBox. So let's launch VirtualBox. When you open VirtualBox, this is the screen that you will see, and you can see there are a couple of options here. So first splash screen is welcome to VirtualBox, and you have preferences. You will get all these options. This is just, for example, general, the default machine folders. So all your virtual machines will be stored in this folder. Then you have RDP authentication library. So this is for remote desktop, and you can say it's currently set to VBox auth. You can have different RDP authentication set as well. Then you have input, that is the type of, you can say, shortcut keys that you can configure with VirtualBox. So there are a couple of options to configure shortcut keys. There is a VirtualBox manager, which is actually this window, and then shortcut keys for your virtual machine. You can change the language. So there are some languages for this interface. You can configure the display. So you can also have your virtual machine work in another display. So and your host machine into another display. You can configure network, and we are going to talk about networks more in a separate video. Then you can extend the functionality of VirtualBox using certain extensions which are available at the marketplace. So this was about preferences. Next option is import and export. We are going to see this in a separate video, how to import and export appliances. And then you have new and add. On the left part, there is an option called tools, and there is a drop down menu where you can select media and network. So if you click on media, you will have option to create hard disk and option to manage optical disk as well as floppy disk. So these are all virtual devices, and I will explain you how to use this option when we talk about disks in a separate video. And then option for networks, and as already mentioned, we'll talk about this in a separate video. On top you can see there are options for file, which has similar options. So I will start by creating a new virtual machine. So as soon as you click new virtual machine, you will be presented with this screen. So there are two modes. This is the guided mode, and there is an expert mode. So when you click on expert mode, you will see there's some detailed option, and this is the guided mode. So I would recommend you start with the guided mode, and I will also show you what are the options in the expert mode. I'm going to create a virtual machine called Kalia Linux, and as soon as I have typed Linux, it has selected the required operating system and the version. If I type Ubuntu, it will automatically select it. If I type Fedora, it will automatically select. So it has certain features to select operating system. So for this video, I'm going to use Kalia Linux, and you can see the kernel version is Linux 2.6, 3.x, 4.x, and type is Linux. Then it asks us to select the memory size. So you can see here the maximum memory available in my physical machine is almost 16 GB. So this is the RAM that I have. I can select up to 10 GB, and you can see there are a couple of options here for orange and red. So this means the red is critical part for my system to work, and this orange part is for the application. So at least I should save around 6 GB of memory for my host operating system. For this virtual machine, I'm going to select 4096 MB, that is 4 GB of RAM. Then it will ask us to create a hard disk. So we have already created RAM. Now we have to select the hard disk, and you can see there is an option called do not add a virtual hard disk. It is useful when you are going to run only a machine in a live mode. So there are certain machines that you can run in a live mode that would directly boot from the ISO image, and you can use it for testing. Second option is you can install it. For that you would require some sort of hard disk, and that's why we need to create a virtual hard disk. So when you create a virtual hard disk, you have to click create, and you have to select the hard disk file type. So we are going to talk about these in detail in a separate video. What are this hard disk file type and what are the differences, but by default you should use VirtualBox disk image. And now there are two options, dynamically allocated and fixed size. Dynamically allocated means that when you are you would be allocating, for example, 10 GB of disk space, right? It would grow on a block by block basis, and once it is, for example, initially it will allocate 5 GB of space, and then when you are using it, it will allocate more 1 GB of space, so it will grow to 6 GB. Then it will allocate 1 GB of space more, and then it will grow to 7 GB. But in fixed size, it will be directly allocating 10 GB of space. So for production, you should always use fixed size, but for testing, I would recommend you to use dynamically allocated. Then you have to specify the file which would be treated as a hard disk, and you can see It is in my VirtualBox VMs, and there is a directory created called Kalia Linux, which is the name of my virtual machine. And then there is the hard disk name, that is kalialinux.vdi, and it has automatically selected 8 GB. I'm going to increase it to 20 GB. Alright, so I'm creating 20 GB, and you can see I have a maximum of 2 TB of hard disk, so I can use that, but 20 GB is enough for me, and I will click on create. So now it has created a virtual machine. Keep in mind, it is just like you're buying a new laptop from the market. It does not have any software installed, and you can see the details. It's the name of the virtual machine is Kalia Linux. The base memory or the RAM is 4096 MB. Now there is a boot order, just like you have in BIOS, floppy, optical, and hard disk, right? And this is the acceleration, VTX AMD-V. This is hardware assisted. It is using nested paging and KVM paravirtualization. So these are the acceleration type. Then I have a 16 MB of video memory, right? Then there is a certain virtual machine VGA graphics controller. Then in storage, I have an optical drive which is empty. I haven't inserted any ISO image, or maybe you can think of it as a DVD or CD, which is not inserted as of now. But there is a SATA interface, and in this I have the kalialinux.vdi file. So this means there is a virtual hard disk connected to the virtual SATA port. Then the audio driver, this is using my system's host audio driver, that is Pulse Audio, and the controller. In network, it is using my system's host network, that is Intel Pro 1000MT desktop, and using a mode called NAT. And then it is also sharing USB, and there is no shared folders. So we are going to talk about shared folders in a separate video. But you can think these are the options that you can do with your virtual machine. So whenever you buy a new laptop from the market, first thing you need to do is install an operating system. So that's what we have to do. So as soon as I click on start, it will give us two windows. So you can see this is the machine, and it says Kalia Linux, that is a virtual machine, and it is still done in powered off mode. It is still done, switched on. So we need to insert a DVD, and I'm going to use an ISO image. So that is a bootable part. So let me just add the ISO image. So I will install Kalia Linux and choose and click on start. Now this is going to start the installation part, and there are certain options for this, like graphical install, advanced option. Alright, install with speech synthesis. I will just click on graphical install, and it will start installing the operating system. So in the installation, you have to select the language. I'm just going to choose default for everything. So this is the host name. I will just select Kali. No need for any domain name. Okay. Set in the password. Partition the disk. So I will use the entire disk, and you can see here I have around 21.5 GB of disk available. So I will use it, and just click on continue. Yes, and then it will install. So this will take time. I'll just skip it. So this is the place where you have to select certain features. So you can see there is a desktop environment, right? And then either you can go for Genome, KDE, Plasma, or XFC, depending upon what you choose. And then there is a collection of tools, right? Top 10, default. So as of now, I will just choose the default, and I will deselect all these because it will reduce the installation time. And you can see it is downloading around 999 files from the internet. So depending upon the speed of your internet, it will take some time to fetch this software. Alright, so after downloading the packages, my system is installed, and the final step is to install the bootloader. And you can see it is asking me to install the grub bootloader, and I will just select my primary partition and install bootloader. And once it is installed, I will eject the ISO image, and I will boot the system normally. So then you would be able to use Kalia Linux inside the virtual machine. Alright, so the final thing, it says the installation is complete. Now I have to choose continue to reboot, and it will just restart the system. So as soon as it will reboot, it will start with the option booting in 3 seconds. I don't have to do anything, and it will just start my operating system. Just log in with my specified username and password. Now you may see that this window is not full screen. So this requires installation of VirtualBox Guest Edition. In case it's not working for you in full screen, you have to install VirtualBox Guest Edition. So you can see Kalia Linux is installed, and I can use it for pen testing. And in this way you can install any operating system on your VirtualBox for your usage. So I will just click on File, and I will close this and power off the machine. And this means your system is now shut down, right? And do try this, create your own virtual machine, and in case of any questions, you can put it in the comment box and I would be happy to help. In case this video is helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching and have a great day.